Ladies and gentlemen, the show is about to begin.
Welcome to the Conversations with Eileen podcast. I'm your host, Eileen Guido. I'm a creative soul on a mission to motivate, connect, and build community. And I want to thank you for joining me on my quest of inspiring others, one conversation at a time. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Eileen. I'm your host, Eileen Guido, welcoming all my returning listeners. Hey guys, glad to have you back. And if you are a first-time listener, brand new, or just a couple of episodes in, I invite you to go ahead to listen to past episodes. But while I've got you here, hey, I'm glad that you have joined us. And I say us because I believe my community, my listeners and I are a community, or at least I hope so. Now, last week I spoke about being a creative and an effective communicator, that it takes more than just, standing up in front of a crowd and saying whatever comes to mind. There's a lot of preparation and back work that comes into that. And this week I thought that I could give us a sister episode or companion episode, because I started reading, again, going into that prep work, about a couple of things, and my research comes from everywhere. Life observations, research, studying on the internet, and just reading things in general. And I started to think about leadership and titles and all that, but let me just dive into the leadership portion of it. We all have been places and worked or have been in situations where the quote unquote leader was not an effective communicator, and it just wreaks havoc all over, miscommunication, demoralized departments, you've been there. Well, I'm not the only one. Or where leadership in general just leaves a lot to be desired. And my thought on that, and my opinion of that, is that they've probably got the wrong idea about leadership. It's more than being the person in charge. You have to have a heart, mind, and spirit of serving those that you are leading or in charge of. It's not just to be in charge to be the top dog. You have to care about what you're doing and the people that are doing the work with you, not for you. Now for me, the definition of leadership, and this is my own, for me, the definition of leadership is the ability to engage, encourage, and empower. The skills to communicate with someone and encourage them to see the best in themselves, which will then leave them feeling empowered to do the same or greater for others. And with that, the goal for a leader, or myself as a leader, is a commitment to oneself and those you are serving. So when you take on a leadership role, I want you to think about not only what you're in charge of, as in task or in people, but the people that are doing the work with you. It's not necessarily just for you or work beneath you, because a leader actually cares about their team and about the end goal, and how the people are in the right place with the right skills to meet that goal and perform that task. Now, in doing my research, I came across so many universities and colleges with these leadership and organizational courses, which can be good, but that, again, this is my opinion, And I do, uh, you know, applaud those that go into higher learning, and that is needed. But I do believe sometimes that these universities make up these extra courses just to get money, and then some businesses decide that, hey, this is the end all be all. You must be in hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to get this leadership course or what have you. These degrees that you could actually just fulfill with experience. Now, of course, there are certain positions in life and certain occupations that require these higher degrees, doctors, lawyers, things like that, obviously. Psychologists, psychiatrists, things that fall into that realm. But again, let's not discount the technical and trade workers and people who move up in the ranks with life and work experience. Because I've seen that requirement or these focus on these must-haves that aren't really must-haves. They're more of, I would say for some positions, more of a preference, that they cause such a great divide and could be missing out on some wonderful people just because that is what you prefer versus what is actually needed. I wonder how many of you out there have thought about or agree that the world is obsessed with titles and placement. I want you to think about all the things that you know how to do, your experiences and things that you have done, and things that you're perfectly capable of doing. I mean, when I sit back and try to pin down what I am for the sake of checking off imaginary boxes, to be seen as validated, to share my knowledge and experience, it's not easy, and to be honest, sometimes quite frustrating. I'm a firm believer in claiming your space, but how do you do that without arrogance? How do you set yourself apart and support your peers? That's a fine line. And just who gets to decide what you're capable of? Excluding degrees in the medical field or being an attorney, a nurse, things like that, things that, you actually have to have these skill sets to do. There are so many other instances where your work experience should come into play. And what about when you go into business for yourself? Who decides what you are and if that's a valid title? And in the day and age that we live in, are you solely important because of your standing in certain realms? If you have less followers or more followers than someone else, does that validate you? Does that negate your experience or your teaching? For myself, when I look back on all the things that I've done and the current things that I am learning and things that I'm capable of, I mean, there isn't a business card long enough to have everything on there. And that's probably the same for some of you. I mean, how can you put a cap on your gifts? What title can encompass everything that you are? And then there are those that have these grand titles that don't treat people well. I am more concerned about how you treat one another than what the world has given you as far as title. What about you? What do you guys think about that? I'd love to hear your feedback on that. You're always welcome to leave me a voice message or a DM on social. And again, these are my opinions. And I want you to know that I do value higher education. I even plan on going back to finishing certain degrees. But at some point, I'd like us all to take a look and have some common sense when it comes to things like that. I hope you understand what I'm trying to get at. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that we are more than just what a piece of paper that we've worked hard to get. I'm not discounting that, but we're more than what that piece of paper or what someone else tells us that we are. All right, guys, that's it for today. Thank you once again for joining me on my quest of inspiring others, one conversation at a time.
Remember, click subscribe. That way you never miss an episode. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Conversations with Eileen and on Twitter at Convos with Eileen. This way, you'll have updates, behind-the-scenes news, information on local and national events, volunteer opportunities, and more. If you found value in today's message, feel free to share my podcast. You can also take a screenshot, tag me at Conversations with Eileen, and share on your social media. Just a reminder, this is a listener-supported podcast. Any donations are greatly appreciated and help make a positive impact in our community.